What if every experience, every hardship, every obstacle was given to you, not to break you, but to mold you and strengthen you? What if the center of your suffering was actually the key to ultimate health? And what if your own pain was meant to be the catalyst for your greatest purpose? Welcome to Buddha Belly Life, empowering purpose, mind to microbiome.
So the tool I want to give men that could save your, this week's of gremlins is that you can say that you're sorry you hurt her, hurt her feelings, knowing that does not mean that you're wrong. It just means that you're sorry that she got hurt.
Means you care.
Yeah, hear this, men. That's what it means for women. Now, for men, sometimes we don't want to say that because we believe that means it's a concession that she's right and you're wrong. And that's not important for a lot of women out there. So that will be the quick tidbit tool that's going to help someone out there.
That's awesome. So this is the big question. Mm-hmm. I have my opinion on this. Mm-hmm. Can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we have our big dreams and do the rest? For instance, I'll just share a minute here. So I'm a big believer that we can have our cake and eat it too. It just takes a methodical mind. It takes a strategy to figure out what that looks like at any given season in our life. So for instance, I have a lot of women that call and they're looking into coaching. They want to get certified, become a coach. And I get to sit there and I get to hear their biggest dreams. And what's sad is that I hear their need to have something, even if they're so devoted to their family, which a lot of the times they are. And it is kind of a natural thing. And they're so devoted to their family and their kids, but they're lacking something else. They're lacking a place of purpose. There's not purpose in child rearing. That's the greatest purpose we will ever contribute to. But they need something more. They need something for them, something to create, a place they could give, a place of community, maybe adult conversation for Pete's sake. And they need it so badly. And yet they don't necessarily have the hugest windows of time to do it. And so sometimes it's I feel like there's this either or you have the breadwinner who's I got to bring home the bread. And yet, like we said, then easily we can lack at home and things like that. Do you think, or the entrepreneur wants to build something big, what's your thoughts on having your cake and eating it too, right?
I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of both and thinking. So sometimes when people come to me, they go I don't know if I should do this or do that. I'll be can you do both? Can you get both?
Yeah.
And typically the first gut response from them is yes. Mm-hmm. And for me, it all comes down to sort of life design. Mm-hmm. And sort of figuring out what you want, which is the number one question, which for some people is easier, for other people is sometimes really hard because they're trying to figure out the right answer as opposed to what would really feel meaningful. Mm-hmm. Which sometimes is different. One of the biggest dreams nowadays is financial freedom. Yet most people don't even know what that would look like. So they don't have an emotional connection to it at all. It wouldn't be meaningful at all.
It's just a concept.
Yeah. Now, do I want people to be financially free? Yes. I want them to have choice. I want you to make a ton of money and help a lot of people. I read something on a t-shirt a while back, be get rich and give back. I'd be I like that. It's cool. Now, so I'm very much a believer of you can have both. And I think that you're a great example of that, Britt. I think that with, if someone says well, I want to start a business and I have kids too, I don't even know if that's possible. You have 6 kids, mm-hmm. Entrepreneur, real estate husband, and you're running a couple of businesses or you're yourself, you're an author, you've written books, all these sort of things. So is it possible? Well, obviously, because people have done it before. That's sort of how I think about it. If it's been done before, it's possible. Now, the second question is do you want that?
Do you want to do what it takes?
Yeah, right. And also, are you willing to pay the price?
Mm-hmm.
And what I find sometimes is that people want a lot of things and they say they want a lot of things, but they don't factor in that it's going to take some work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think learning about how to do something is invaluable, because without it, it's going to be hard for you to do trial and error to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons I'm a big believer in coaching and coach myself is that coaching is sort of getting it done, making sure it gets done.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we're sitting there with a nice book about how to do it, but we haven't taken the first step yet. So to answer the question, is it possible? 100% yes. And the second question obviously is like, how do you get there? And that is to figure out what you want, come up with a bunch of role models who've done it before, and see if you can follow along the same path.
And so that's so I've done this a few times in my life, because I've always had such a need. So I have like these conflicting pieces of me. Like I need that piece, and I call it entrepreneurial piece, but it's the creative. I want to empower people. I get fulfillment. I do it like the passion side of me. I need that passion or I will die. I will be a gremlin every moment of my life if I do not have that part of me. Right. And yet I'm also so convicted about being around my kids as much as I possibly can and cultivating, especially in their years before they hit kindergarten, where they're gone, 6-7 hours a day, of cultivating that and being present for that, even if I'd rather be doing the fun, talking on stage or doing stuff like that, as opposed to changing diapers and cleaning up puke or mediating fights and arguments, right? I know how important it is for me to be there. And so I'm convicted here, and I'm also need this here. So for me, I have to find a way to have my cake and eat it too. And it's in what ratios? Like when I found out I was having the baby that we hadn't planned, I was ready. My youngest kid was about to be in school. Like I was going to have free time to do more with my stuff without, daycare or anything. And then I found out I'm pregnant, and I am a very, nurse full-time 2 years kind of mom. And so I knew what that meant for me in sacrifice, but I still wasn't going to give up all of it. I had to figure out how. It wasn't the what am I going to pick? It was the how am I going to do it? Right. And I went back to when I had my second son, and I was nursing, and his dad at the time worked all the time. And I tell the story a lot. So he worked a lot during the day. So I didn't have any help. I didn't have anything. I just had him, and my kids are very clingy. They the boob is their thing. Like you cannot leave, the boob cannot leave, even if it's not eating time, the boob cannot leave the vicinity of 3 feet of their bodies. Like that is the children that I create, and they don't lay down well for naps by themselves. They sleep on you. I mean, that's just like what they are. And so the only way, I couldn't even hardly use my 2 hands. And I had this thing that I just really needed. And I was I'd gotten certified as a coach, and I just needed something. And so the only way I could get him sleeping away from me was 1 nap a day for about an hour and a half. And I'd have to drive him in the car and stay in the car. So I would take a tablet with me, and I'd drive him to sleep, and I'd park at the river, and I'd have a tablet, and I'd write my book. And that's how I wrote Buddha Belly. I mean, a book that we're using all over now that was just republished. That is how I wrote it. It was in that window. And I had 2 choices. I can sleep in the one window of time, which in my car would have been hard. I could sleep with him during that nap, or I can fill this other piece of myself. So those were my choices. Okay. So I didn't have this big thing. I had 2 choices in this small little window fraction of time. And that's what I chose because my soul needed it so bad. And it was great. And even with Danny, so with, my husband now, he's in real estate, and we've talked a million times. And because I've done creative stuff, I believe we can do it. I believe we can have our cake and eat it too, to some extent. And so he's like,
but I think that's a big component of it, by the way, is like deciding, here's what I want. And then all of a sudden it transitions to how. Yeah. And we did that with real estate. Once you made a decision. Yeah. Go. Sorry.
Yes. No, we're doing that with his real estate business. Cause he was, he's like, if you're in real estate, if you're an agent, there is no knowing when you can be off. There just really is no not jumping. Like this is the name of the game. Most people don't understand it when they get into it, all that. And I was like, I don't think it needs to be done that way. And we just spent forever. And now, after being together 2.5 years, we've gotten to a place and we've put together some stuff and some opportunities have presented that we're starting to put together a system now because we've got 6 kids. Someone's sick, someone's staying home from school. I mean, we've got so much that gets thrown at us. We have to be able to pivot. And so we're just now being able to put together something, with his real estate business that was impossible in quotes, right? It was impossible for a better quality of life, but we're making it possible. We're doing it. So like you said, I'm like, you can't look at something, and if you want two things or you have a need, you can't look at it and say either or. If the second you say that it's impossible to do both, then you are quitting even trying. You're not even trying to get there. But when you say, okay, how? Right? I knew I was having a baby. I knew that my how and my passion wasn't 5 hours a day of whatever I was wanting to do for my business. No, it was an hour and a half nap time that I knew I would have to drive in a car to get my babies to sleep in a car seat. But I got that little window, and that little window was mine. And that little window grew over time and became something else. And then it shrunk back down, and then it grew again, but it was mine, and it will always be mine.
Yeah. But also, like, if you have 1.5 hours, you're going to do different things. And if you have, 5, or like if this is the time you have, what do you need to do? There's a tiny bit of a business idea there too. I'm sure there's a lot of women, a lot of moms, a lot of parents in general that they want to start their business, but they don't know how. I think you have a pretty interesting story. So.
I know. Well, and that's so I've been blessed to be able to exercise that a lot. That's why I'm so passionate. That's probably why people trust me so much when they get into the coaching, because of my story. So when they're like, I want to do this, but I don't know, and they get hesitant, I'm like, heck yes, you can do this. Because if you do something, you believe everybody can do it. I say that all the time. Like, you're like, the ceiling's been raised. Like, you've seen it happen. And so you're like, you can totally do it.
It's like, I'm not asking. Like,
exactly.
I spent a little time in the seminar space. And once you've seen a couple of things, like, often enough, like, do you think it's possible for someone to, like, transform the feelings of something really bad that's happened and not spend years of therapy doing it? I'd be like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, what, Henrik, what do you think that? Because I've seen it 10,000s of times. Like, not asking.
Yes.
I've done it at this point. So, yeah.
Do you have a desire for fulfillment? Does helping people tap into their own health mentally, emotionally, and physically fire you up? Do you believe in the impact of the gut microbiome on overall wellness? You may be an HWCA coach. For more info on our cutting-edge health coach trainings, visit hwcacoach.com. Before we wrap up, I have to go into this one, which I don't know if you and I have really ever talked about this. So I'm going to throw you for a loop.
Bring it.
Tell me for real. Anybody that knows me, they know how much of a fan I am. Tell me what it's like to have spent so much time working so close to Tony Robbins. What is it like? I mean, I know people probably ask you this all the time, but that dude is my hero. And I remember when I was there and he was within arm's distance a couple times. And it was such a crazy experience for me because he rolls like a madman. I mean, there's just nobody that quite does life like him. And you've spent over 6,000 hours in the vicinity of all of that amazingness. I just have to know.
Well, I love Tony. Like, I think he's putting a lot of good into the world, and like, we're on a similar path in the sense that he just, really wants people to win and win it their way. Like, for people to show up in a place that feels good to them, where they can bring out their power. And he talks about it a lot. And yeah, I spent a lot of time there. I've been training for his company, right? So I've done it once or twice. One of the fun things about being in that space a lot is that you get this muscle of flexibility beaten into you in the best of ways. But yeah, I love Tony. I think, like, I always speak very highly of him because of what he's sharing with the world. So it's intense. If you've ever been to a Tony seminar, it's a party. And if you haven't, like, go to one, see for yourself. Mm-hmm.
I know, it's, you kind of, after you do something like that, like, you get certain people, like, and only certain people get you. Like, once you've done that, it's like a camaraderie.
Yeah, but if you go to, like, seminars, there's a lot of people, like-minded people that want to grow and that have an interest for business and entrepreneurship and personal development. Yes. And I think there's a raw and real feeling that you don't get sometimes, even in, people's real lives, because, like, I'm Swedish. I'm not sure if everyone hears my accent behind the mic.
Not at all.
But in Sweden, like, people are very, like, cohesive in how they like they're very standard, if you will, like they believe similar things, etc. And what I love so much about being in the seminar space and spending a lot of time there is the very real conversations that brings out people like people's unique gifts and their and they're like their real fears, not so much what you're supposed to feel. And I appreciate that more than anything.
You know what I love?
Real conversation, like real communication, if you will. Yeah,
totally. And you know what was the most powerful thing for me is, like, I love Tony. What he puts on is amazing, all that. But there's so much that the energy sucks the people in and the people contribute to. And the coolest thing that I took from that whole experience was feeling like I was in that room with millionaires and billionaires and everything who were also looking at their businesses, who were also had their obstacles and their stresses and their liabilities and their self-doubts and their all that stuff, right? And in that moment, the illusion that I was not a game player dissipated. Like, I went home from that event and realized, like, I'm no different from these people. I'm just at a different area. I'm in a different field, but I'm in the game and they're in the game. Even if they're playing with millions and billions, they're still in the game. I'm still in the game too. And that can never be taken away from me. Like, that mindset shift right there was my favorite. And you do a really good job. So I'll tell a little bit about Henrik here before we are done with this, but you do a really good job of taking a lot of these power moves and strategies and things and communicating better. Or communicating really well with people where they feel comfortable with you, where they feel like they're not. I've seen a lot of business coaches and stuff that are just aggressive, and it's cool if you want to show up for business, but it's kind of like showing up to a personal trainer. Like, it's kind of painful sometimes, like, and you got to show up because instead of like, I want to show up when you're working with people, they want to show up. It's kind of like how you feel if you're going to go to therapy for the day or something, like, you can breathe here. You can be the high level executive or whatever, and you can sit on a comfy couch and you can breathe for a second, and we will achieve big things here. But you don't have to blow your brain right now on all the stuff, because we're actually working on the foundation of what is going to make all of that easier and healthier and better and make you healthier and better and happier, right?
That's very kind. Thank you.
Yes. So lovely, Henrik. I'm going to put the Bit.ly link or the whatever link we got here for some of Henrik's stuff in the show notes, so you can find it in there. You can find him on Facebook. You can find him on Instagram. Henrik, will you give me some of your handles off the bat, just depending on where people go that they can follow you? I suggest you follow him because he's
see it in the notice or the title. It says at Henrik Nordenstedt, so that's my name. You can just copy it from the the title or the guys.
We'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah. So I'm Henrik Nordenstedt both on Facebook and on Instagram. On Instagram, there is a link tree which has all my links in it. If you want to work with me, if you want to have some access to some resources that might really help. If you want to do the work on your own, you can. I'm very much big on people being able to show up as themselves and having that fuel their life. I have a longer story about that, but yeah, like I'm very open to people that are think this is important, think this will help them win. Just reach out so I can help.
Mm-hmm. And so if you get on the phone with Henrik, he is amazing at digging into some of your potential. So I would advise, if you are that person, if you are that entrepreneur that just can't seem to feel happy. Like, everybody's striving for that, right? Like, we're doing the goals, we're doing the things, and maybe happiness is at the next figure or the next achievement or whatever, right? And it just doesn't show up. Okay. Or maybe you're trying to start something big and you want to do it the right way. Make it easier. You don't have to trip over your feet as much as some of us had to do. Like, take the shorter path, talk to Henrik, let him dig in, get cozy on his couch, hang out with a homie, and walk away with some exponential information and empowerment. So thank you so much, Henrik. This is such a blast, and you gave people so much value today. I really appreciate you being on here.
Thanks so much, Britt. Happy to be here.
All right. Thank you guys for joining the podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us for another empowering episode of Buddha Belly Life. For more information on gut health and mindset resources, visit buddhabellylife.com. And remember, heal yourself and then empower others to do the same.